Hi, I'm Dr. Charlene Walters, author, business and branding mentor, trainer, as well as your host for Launch, a business talk show for anyone who wants to launch their business, their career, or their life. Hi everyone, welcome to Launch. I am so excited. Today we have an amazing guest, Joyce Marter. She is a psychotherapist, she is an author, she's a speaker, and she's a friend of mine. Welcome to the show, Joyce.
Thank you so much, Charlene. I'm so honored to be with you.
I am so super thrilled that you could come on today. Can you tell everyone about your amazing background?
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, like you said, I've been a licensed psychotherapist for about 25 years. I find my work really deeply rewarding, intellectually, emotionally, even spiritually. And I love sharing what the wisdom that I've learned from my clients through speaking and writing. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I started my own outpatient mental health company here in the Chicagoland area. And I started it with $500 and $50,000 of student loans.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was able to successfully sell it a few years ago when it was grossing several million. So I really wish I had your book, Charlene, though, when I was in the process, because I made 1,000 mistakes. So,
I'm sure you did a lot better than you thought you did. Everyone is so much harder on themselves than, the general public is for sure.
well, it certainly was stressful and I had some really low points. And I just think your book is amazing and so helpful. And I hope my book as well will be helpful to folks. And when I read your book, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder I loved Charlene when I met her, because we're so like-minded and we even touch on some of the same subjects from different angles.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, of course, we definitely have a lot in common, and I'm so glad that now, as things are changing, we'll be able to hang out in person again, hopefully soon.
I would love that.
You've helped a lot of people in your career. Would you recommend therapy for everyone, would you say?
I am a huge believer that we all can benefit from therapy or counseling at different points in our lives. It does not mean we are crazy and we should not wait until we're in crisis. We all have mental health just like we have physical health. And when I started my graduate program at Northwestern, I was really scared that my professors were going to see that I deal with an anxiety disorder and that they were going to be like, girl, you can't be a therapist. You've got issues yourself. But thankfully, we all have issues.
Yes,
It's
of course.
part of the human condition. And they encouraged all the students to participate in our own psychotherapy. And for me, it was so eye-opening and really gave me new tools in which to understand myself and my life and the world around me. And I think seeing a therapist is like going to a dentist or a doctor. It should be a routine and preventative form of healthcare. And it's like having a personal trainer for your mind and your relationship. So it can actually improve your positive mental health, which actually, in my research and in my book, I have found it leads to financial gain.
Yes.
When we do our work in therapy, we're more confident, we feel better about ourselves, and it changes how we put ourselves out in the world.
Absolutely. I totally agree. The better we feel, the better we will do financially and business and all aspects of our lives. And something that I know is really important to you is battling the stigma associated with mental health and, mental illness, I should say. What have you done to kind of further that agenda, and what do you think needs to happen to sort of eradicate that?
Well, my hope is that the pandemic, the silver lining is that we were already in a mental health epidemic before the pandemic, and it just added fuel to the fire. So over the last year and a half, I've been giving a ton of corporate webinars on mental health awareness and stomping the stigma and promoting compassionate conversations, honest conversations about mental health. So the more people can share their stories and say, you know what, I deal with anxiety. I'm a recovering alcoholic. My marriage isn't perfect. It's normalizing and validating to others, because I think we all compare our insides to other people's outsides and we suffer in silence. And
Yes.
And there's tools and resources that are available to help people. So in my journey, I've done a tremendous amount of blogging and article writing and speaking. And hopefully this book too will be a message that it's okay. You know what? We're all suffering, especially right now. And that's a normal response. It doesn't mean that it's a weakness. It's not your fault. Doesn't mean you're crazy, certainly. It's a normal response to your nature and your nurture. And we need to honor that and take care of ourselves so that we can be our best at home and at work.
For sure. And, we have seen that rise in the need for therapy during the pandemic. Do you think that will continue as we start to emerge from the pandemic?
I really do. I'm very hopeful. Therapists are more busy than we've ever been. The
Yes.
issue is now is finding a therapist that has availability. And I think that's really positive. I have my kids in therapy. I got back in therapy when the pandemic started. We all need tune-ups from time to time. And now with the pandemic, many insurance companies, most of them, made telehealth appointments
Yeah.
covered by insurance. And it's so convenient and easy and non-intimidating. And so I think that is helping people promote access to care.
Surely it is. And, a lot of people during the past year and a half have had a career transition. What advice would you give someone who's kind of going through these changing times in terms of their profession? Maybe they've jumped into something new, or maybe they're looking for something.
These are my favorite clients to work with, and I love helping people do a deeper inventory on themselves, some soul searching about if they had a magic wand, what would their career, their business, their personal life look like? When I was creating my business, I saw a career counselor and she said, Joyce, you must plan your business in the context of your life and not the other way around. And that really resonated with me. So I love mirroring back to my clients all that is special and unique and talented about them and helping them align that with a greater need in the world and doing that to the greatest extent possible, helping them be empowered, have positive thinking. Obviously, in my training as a practice, I've learned that cognitive behavioral therapy, which is one of the most empirically supported forms of therapy, says that our thoughts precede our emotions and our behaviors. So I think a lot about entrepreneurship or career change is about getting a handle on our inner critic. I love what you write about perfectionism and imposter syndrome. And I know that can creep up for folks when they're making a big change in their life. And so it's important to replace that with some positive coaching and becoming your own best advocate, which is something you can do through thought restructuring, which is some of the exercises I have in my book.
You are so right, because so many people have been through such a major upheaval. What are some strategies that you can give that I think the audience would really appreciate in terms of setting healthy boundaries with clients, with friends, with family, with coworkers? What are some of your tips here?
Well, in my book, in a chapter that I have that's about ego, I talk about the two sides of ego. And I say that healthy self-esteem is midway between diva and doormat. And so the diva is somebody who's entitled and not respectful of other people's boundaries. And that can be bad for business
Right.
and for relationships. And
Yeah.
then the doormat is somebody who doesn't respect his or her own boundaries, especially financially. And so that healthy medium is when we respect ourselves and we respect the other party and we set healthy boundaries and limits. And that means assertive behavior, assertive communication, learning to say no, learning to get comfortable with negotiation. And that can happen both at home and at work, because sometimes we need to set financial boundaries with our loved ones, our kids, our partners, extended family, and certainly at work. So I really think it's important for people to cultivate their own self-worth so that they take care of themselves as they would somebody they love very much. And that leads to financial reward. We must know that we're deserving in order for that to come. Susie Orman says that she noticed in her financial planning business that self-worth leads to net worth.
Yes.
And so it's important to have your confidence and feel good about who you are and how you're communicating in the world.
Yes, it sure is. You have to absolutely put yourself in the best light, particularly as a business owner, because if you don't have confidence, no one else will have confidence in you. So I really appreciate that information and those strategies, particularly diva versus doormat. Joyce, I know that you're also a really strong advocate for yoga, for mindfulness, for meditation. Can you give some tips for our busy working professionals out there so that they can also stay mentally fit?
And I'm glad you asked this because a new study came out from the World Health Organization saying that over 800,000 people die per year from burnout. We suffer from, I know, isn't it horrible?
It's crazy.
From heart disease and strokes. And it's people who work over 55 hours per week. And so we, as a culture, live in this society where many of us suffer from the disease of being busy. And the research shows that during the pandemic, when people have been working from home, they're actually working more hours and longer hours because of accessibility and no commute. And so in my talks on mindfulness in the workplace, some of the strategies I recommend is, setting firm time boundaries with work and having structure to your day. So thinking ahead about your day and your week. And the research really shows that starting your day out with a mindful moment will set you up for success. So instead of reaching for your phone and looking at your emails right away, taking a moment for some deep breathing, some reflection, maybe setting an intention for the day, because I believe in self-fulfilling prophecy. If we have an intention of how we want to feel and how we want to operate in the day, it increases the likelihood that we will.
Yes.
And practices like deep breathing, yoga, meditation help us connect with the breath and help us connect with the present moment. And when we're tense, we often worry about the past or worry about the future, and peace can be found in the present moment. And actually, when we're rooted and grounded in the present, we make the best business decisions and we connect with our deeper intuition.
We do.
So having breaks throughout the day is really important, making sure that you've scheduled time for self-care and for accessing support. That was one of the mistakes that I made as an entrepreneur. I kind of had suffered from codependency where I would overfunction and exhaust myself and not ask for the help and support that I needed. And now I almost don't do anything without getting counsel and support from others. So I think that's helpful too.
It really is. And I'm definitely guilty of reaching for the phone first thing in the morning. So I've got to get more mindful about that. You mentioned a little bit about your book, but we'd love to hear more about all of the great nuggets that the audience can get from your book. Tell us.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a labor of love. I've actually been working on it for 10 years. So I'm so happy that it's finally come to fruition. I feel like I'm having a baby. It came from a couple of things in my practice. As my clients started making progress in therapy, whether they were coming in for depression, anxiety, addiction, relationship issues, they started to earn more money. And I was like, why the heck is this happening? They're getting raises and promotions and starting their own businesses. And it was because they were working on their underlying self-worth and putting themselves out in the world differently. And when I was going through financial difficulty with my business, which is an insurance-friendly practice, and the bigger we got, the more money was outstanding in insurance,
Yes.
I experienced tremendous financial anxiety. So I used mental health strategies that I learned in my practice to help me move through that. And it worked. And so the book is based on a talk that I've given for about 15 years called The Psychology of Success. And it is about 12 mindsets that I've identified from my clients, now thousands of them over the past 25 years, that lead to holistic success. And the cool thing is, I hired a PhD researcher, and he found that each of the mindsets is empirically supported to improve both positive mental health and financial health. And I have a ton of exercises. It's a program. You have to do the work. And the exercises are fun, and they're supported in psychology as being effective. And I have some innovative ones of my own. It makes a great corporate wellness program as well.
How amazing. And I hope everyone will check out your book because I know it's a great resource. And something else I wanted to ask you, since you're an expert in this area, what should someone do if he or she is more frugal than their business partner? What are some tips?
Oh my gosh, I just answered an article on this, and that can be really challenging. And it's also challenging in relationships and partnerships. And so this is about using your emotional intelligence and having honest conversations and being open to the other person's perspective. So learning to listen, to be empathic instead of arguing with how somebody feels, like say they're more conservative, instead of telling them that they're wrong or they're not thinking properly, you want to have, empathic conversations where you talk about, I understand you're afraid. I understand this is overwhelming. What can we do to come to a win-win compromise? And I think having a mediator, like a business coach or a therapist or a financial advisor of some sort, is always helpful to come up with that middle ground, because we get really emotional about money. My book is about the psychology of money, the way our thoughts and our emotions and our behaviors impact our financial reality. And many of us learn those from our families of origin and earlier life experiences. So if we've had traumas, we may be more prone to being conservative. And if we have some impulsive tendencies, we may be more prone to having a high threshold of tolerance for risk.
Definitely. It's all about meshing those styles, and it's certainly important to analyze ourselves first before we try to work things out with our business partners.
And using each other's strengths, I think, is important. Like the person who's frugal can help reduce overhead.
Yes.
And the person who is more ambitious or more confident can maybe work on some business development. And by collaborating, you can find that happy medium.
I think so too. It's always so helpful to go to someone, no matter what we're dealing with, who thinks opposite of us. It gets us thinking down a different path, and it really works out well for us in the end to have that other perspective. Okay, so I like to play a little fun game on my show. It's called If You Tell Me Yours, I'll Tell You Mine. So I have some questions for you, Joyce. First question, if you were an Olympic athlete, which sport would you compete in?
Ice skating.
Ice skating, that's a good one.
Yeah, they're so beautiful and strong and courageous, leaping off the ice. And I would love that. And I like sparkly clothes.
Oh, that's great.
So that would be fun.
My daughter is an ice skater, and she is so good at it, and I'm so envious of her. And I think sometimes about trying to do lessons, but it is just not my thing. For me, I think if there was an Olympic sport of Pilates, that would be more my speed.
That sounds fantastic.
Yes. Next question. Would you rather kiss a jellyfish or step on a crab?
Oh,
I know.
that's tough. I would say I would kiss the jellyfish, hoping, I don't know if I would have a poisonous response. I wouldn't want to kill the crab.
I feel the same. I mean, it would be terrible to have to kiss the jellyfish, but I wouldn't want to crunch on a poor little crab walking around. So definitely I would choose that too. Next question. What's the first thing you notice about someone when you meet them?
Their affect, their facial expression, I feel like I read a lot of people's nonverbals, and if they're, open or present or, joyful, I really notice that. I pick up on people's energy very easily.
Very cool. Very cool. I feel the same. I also feel like I pick up a vibe from a person and I kind of decide right away, what they're like. And usually I'm right. Every once in a while I'm surprised, but I think we do certainly pick up that energy from people. If you didn't have to work, what would you do?
Oh my gosh, I love working, so that would be tough. I love traveling, and I would love to do amazing yoga retreats in Thailand and different places. And I would probably get back into doing some artwork, which is
Nice.
something that I know I would enjoy. So it's just spending more time with my family and maybe cooking more.
I can certainly use some more time cooking, that's for sure. For me, yes, definitely. I would love to travel, get away, spend time with the kids. Also, I think I would love to do more charity work. There's so much to be done in the world that I wish I had more time to do and to devote to it. So that's what I would do. Next question. What's your pet peeve in traffic?
Oh my gosh. Well, one day, this is funny you asked this because one day I was thinking, you know what? I don't get road rage. Like I just
Hmm,
don't.
good for you.
And I was feeling all proud of myself. And then it occurred to me that it's because I'm sure I caused the road rage.
Oh.
So I think I'm oblivious and peaceful in driving, but I am kind of a spacey driver, so and slow. So I'm sure I frustrate others. And my 16-year-old just learned to drive. So I guess my pet peeve is feeling like my life is in danger.
So stressful. I'm going through the same thing. Every time we go out on the road, I'm like, that was so stressful. I'm always like, can I just drive?
It's so scary. I'm like clutching the handle of the door.
Yes, it really is. The good news about that, and I'm with you too, I'm not the best driver in the world, so I have that student driver bumper sticker on. So if I'm driving really poorly, people will probably just excuse me. I think my pet peeve in traffic is probably when people are in a place to turn left where there's no way they can turn left. So everybody's sort of stacked up behind them. And it's kind of like I just get there and go right, just go right and do a U-turn, flip around. I guess that would be. I'm a little impatient though, so I have to work on that. Next question. Say again?
I'm surprised you're impatient because you're so kind.
I am a little impatient or a lot impatient depending on what it's in relation to. Last question of the game. If you were in a zombie apocalypse, how long would you survive?
I think my chances are really good if I'm with my husband because
Okay.
he's one of those people who would win Survivor. He's just really smart with that kind of stuff. I would be toast in seconds because I have a horrible sense of direction and I don't think that way. So I think I'd worry about my survival if I didn't have him with me.
I agree. Same thing. Like I give myself like 5 seconds, the beginning of the movie. Like I am done. Unless my kids are really resourceful. So if I was around them, they would certainly help me and we would get to live a little longer anyways. I'm not sure. Hopefully we won't have to find out about that one. So we're coming to the end here, Joyce. Where can the audience find out more about you?
My website is joycemarter.com. So JoyceMarter.com. And the page for the book is financialmindsetfix.com. And the book is available in audiobook, hardcover. It's coming out in Spanish and Korean, and it's with all major retailers.
Awesome. So I hope everybody will check all of that out. And until then, we will see you next time on Launch.